Welcome to the April 29th OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add names and affiliations to the list so we know who's joining the call. And now I'll pause for a minute and just provide anybody the opportunity to add items to the agenda or to raise any questions that they may have. All right. We had Sue scheduled to give us a lightning talk on the new website design, but I don't see Sue on the call. So why don't we move down and take a look at the recent user raised issues, and we'll see if Sue's able to join and take us through that lightning talk later. So jump down to the user raised issues here, and we'll start with a look at those. The first couple of these, at least 3 of the first 4 here, have been raised by someone who's doing some fuzz testing of OpenJ9 and finding some behavior differences between OpenJ9 and Hotspot. And so we've been looking through the changes they've been raising, or the issues they've been raising, and determining which ones are implementation choices within the specification and which ones may actually be related to bugs or issues in OpenJ9. So a number of these have been closed off. There's a number more being opened, and I expect that as they continue their fuzz testing, would not be surprised to see more issues raised as we seek clarification around some of these spec corner cases. See that Sophia has raised an issue to use the OpenJDK API v3 to download from Adopt.
Yeah, we've deprecated v2.
Is this in the Docker images, or is this somewhere else? The Docker files. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe.
I think there has been activity with Keith and Philippe around some of the Docker files, so maybe this is already addressed. I'm not sure.
So Philippe updated some Docker files for Z, but what we're going to do is delete all the Docker files and replace them with a script that Keith has written.
Great.
The script's under review, and I think he's got one more fix to make, and once that's fixed, it'll get merged in either today or tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And that script is using the v3 API, so this will be addressed then.
Yeah.
Perfect.
This is another one of the fuzz test issues. This one is a crash that they've been running into when running in a mode that forces the JIT to compile everything. Interestingly, it's a crash in the interpreter though, so we're still digging into what's going on there. Pete, I believe you have a fix for this next issue.
Yep, I'm just finalizing it, so I should get it out for review later today.
This was another one of the fuzz testing issues, as is this. And then that's the ones that have been opened since the last OpenJ9 community call. I'll scroll down a little further and give people an opportunity to call out any of these other issues that they believe may need attention or that they have questions around. I see that Sue has joined the call now. So what we'll do is we'll jump back to the agenda and just see, Sue, are you ready to take us through the website design review?
Hi, Dan. Yes, I am. I'm sorry, it took an age for my WebEx to actually connect. Right, I'm going to share my screen.
So I will stop share.
Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So this website design has been underway for quite some time. It's had a contribution from a lot of people, a lot of ideas come forward. But the actual implementation of this has been down almost exclusively to Bazif Khan, who's on today's call. So thank you, Bazif, for all the effort you've put into this. So anyone's familiar with the current site will know that it got very, very busy. It's, what, 2.5 years old now. It ended up having a lot of icons on it. Got very difficult to navigate. This is a much cleaner, much sleeker design. and I'll just take you very quickly through the pages that we've got. So in the header here, rather than having a hamburger menu on the left, we've got all of the pages clearly laid out with links at the top and our social icons up in the corner. So I'll take you through the home page. So under the header here, we have, as we have today, an introduction and a link directly to Adopt OpenJDK so that people can go and grab a binary should they wish to. We still have performance as our main kind of highlights on here. There have been discussions about turning these more into user stories, user-focused ideas, and those we can update the site with as soon as we've come to some agreement about the types of use cases we want to put there. But for now, we're promoting, again, the speed performance aspects of OpenJ9. The second part of this page is mainly aimed at our user audience, people who want to just use OpenJ9. They may have questions, so we're inviting them to come to the Slack. And if they have problems, they're invited to go and open issues. Beneath that, this section is more focused towards the people who want to make development contributions to the project. And therefore we have pointed out the contribution guidelines and encouraging people to come on to the community calls. The footer, again, this has been redone. We have key links on the left-hand side, and on the right here, this is the new incubator logo from Eclipse, which replaces the egg that we used to have. Now, before I go to the other pages, I'm going to quickly show you the mobile view for this site, because this is fully mobile responsive. And here, if you were to look at this from your phone, you'll see that the menu is on the bottom of your mobile phone where your thumbs are, which is a key feature of this design. And then as you scroll through the page, you'll see that it is relayed out nicely and evenly. It's quite a long page, but everything is on there that you would expect to find. Again, that's the phone view. You could have a look at an iPad view. Again, it all lays itself out nicely. So I think Razif has done an excellent job here on doing that. Pop back over to the main page again, and I'll just run through the other pages. We have an about page, which talks about our story. We have given some kudos to the supporters for the project, who support us in different ways, build systems, people resources and the like. And we have here 2 areas where we feel that people coming to the about page might want to go to next. That's to our user documentation if they're trying to learn a little bit more about OpenJ9, or to our blog site where we've got a lot more of the developer-focused content. I'm going to skip over docs just at the moment. I'll come back to that in a moment. Performance page, that has a completely new layout here, and we've gone for sort of the card approach. What we've got on here today is the same data that we have on the site at the moment, just in a different format. But the performance team have got lots of different ideas for things they want on this page. And what we're going to do is build this up in horizontal bands. So here we have the current OpenJDK8 performance highlights. And when we have other data available to display, we'll have a different band underneath this and another band underneath that. And we know we have data coming for OpenJDK11 and also for Quarkus. So this page could be built out, and the great benefit of using the React and Gatsby design is that this is all modular and can be built out quite easily. The news page is where you'd come to find out what's in our latest release. So we would always have the latest release here that takes you to the user documentation if you want to learn more. And at the bottom of this page, we are automatically pulling in the last 2 or most recent blogs from the OpenJ9 blog site. If you want to go and see all the blogs, there's an easy link at the bottom here. If you want to go and read a little bit more about each of these blogs, you can jump straight to them from the continue reading bar. The last thing I wanted to show you was the docs. Now, docs, as you know, is a different GitHub repository. It sits at the website, but all of the HTML pages that are built through a different system. So we need to bolt on the changes for the documentation pages through a separate pull request. Now, all that's really changed here, and I'm just showing you a staging PR where Bazif has made the changes, is that the header and the footer for the docs pages mirror what we've got at the website, so that when we promote the website and this gets pushed out as well, it'll look more like a more sort of cohesive part of the site. So that's really all I wanted to show today. People have seen the designs along the way, but this is pretty much the finished thing. I think it's good enough to go out as it is. We know there are other things that people are wanting. Those things I think we should add incrementally as time goes by, and just try and get this out. So what I'll be looking for hopefully soon in the, we'll do it via GitHub, is just to have a sort of formal review where people can, or the project leads can vote for this to go forward. Are there any little pieces left to do? A couple of minor things. We need to turn on Google Analytics at the last minute. We need to change some of the links in this header at the moment. This is because we're showing this at GitHub pages. We've had to use other links. So those will be done at the last minute. And I know that Adam Brousseau has been very helpful in getting the infrastructure and pipeline scripts ready for us so that we can easily push this to the Eclipse Git repository. We used to do it via a mirror. We can no longer do that. We have to build and deploy directly, but we've got all that figured out, and I think Adam's nearly there in terms of the infrastructure work that's needed. So does anyone have any questions or any comments about the site?
Hi Sue, one question was about the mobile view. You had the navigation buttons at the bottom and said that was to make it thumb friendly, but I think that's fairly unusual and inconsistent with what most people would expect from a mobile website these days, isn't it?
Well, I think it's a new and growing trend amongst sites, actually. You know, most people hold their phones in a way that they prefer to use their thumbs to navigate. You know, if you're typing on your phone, you're using generally your thumbs, unless you're old like me and you might just use one finger. But most people you see operating their phone are actually doing it with their thumbs. And so having the menu bar at the bottom is actually quite a good usability feature.
Okay, I normally hold it in one hand and type with the other.
Oh, I wouldn't like to put you in the old category there then, Stuart, but I could be right. I'd be interested in other people's feedback on that. I mean, that was something that has been trialed on other sites and has worked very well.
Overall, I wanted to say a big thank you to you and to Bazif for all the work that's gone into the website. It looks really good. I did have one question about the docs page.
Yes.
Pull that up again.
Yep.
The top corner, I see the GitHub stats. Are those the GitHub stats for the docs repo?
Yes, they will be.
Could we have that be the GitHub stats for the main repo?
We can see what we can do. If it's not possible, we can probably turn it off. This is a feature of the mkdocs system that we use to build these static pages. So it's running from within that repository, but it might be possible to point it to the OpenJ9 repository instead. And if we can't do that, we can probably make it disappear, if that would be your preference.
Yeah, the numbers are off given the typical thing you would expect the numbers to be for the overall OpenJ9 project, and
Yes,
41 stars is a...
Yeah. It's
This is the docs
misleading
in
because
progress.
yeah, it's the docs. Yeah.
This is the docs in progress website. If you look at
That's
the
true,
actual
yeah.
published docs, it just says GitHub.
Okay. Yeah, this is on the staging site, so it's probably not reflecting what it should be. We'll figure out what we've got in production and whether that's appropriate. It sounds like from what Peter said that it's not actually showing the stars and forks.
Today it's not. It does give you a link to the docs GitHub though.
Okay. So we're probably okay there. I mean, if anyone has any other comments, then please do use the Slack channel or something. I'm conscious not to take up too much time today because I know you've got a lot to get through.
I was just going to say, I noticed the rocket ship logo looked familiar, and it's very similar to the Azure pipeline, but it's not quite the same.
There's a lot of very similar rockets around. I'm trying to remember, where are these Font Awesome, Bazif? Can you remember? I think
Font Awesome.
Yeah, I think that's where we got them from, and those are commonly used across lots of sites. As I mentioned earlier in the demo, there has been a request for these to be more user-focused, and if we get to more user-focused things, then those icons will probably change to something else. These icons kind of suited the performance points we were trying to make.
All right. Thanks so much, Sue, for the presentation today. And as she says, please follow up via Slack or via GitHub if there are further questions or concerns around the design. But definitely a big thank you to you and Bazif for the work that's gone into this.
And many others too, Dan. You know, I know we've had lots of meetings along the way and shared lots of ideas, so it's been a real collaborative effort. But yeah, especially thanks to Bazif for putting all this together. Actually doing the implementation work has been really good. I'll stop sharing at this point and let you carry on with the session. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll pull the agenda up now. All right. And you can see that we have a number of other lightning talks scheduled for upcoming weeks. I'll just jump down now to the download trends and ask if Andrew's online and if he's been able to update those. I don't see Andrew on the call, so I'm going to assume these didn't get updated this week. We'll follow up next week on those. In terms of our release review, the 0.20 retrospective is still here. So if people have comments or issues about what went really well or what could have gone better during the last release, if you can add them in here. I don't want to take too much time today to stop here, but I would like to continue to ask for any feedback on the release and what we can do better or what we should keep doing in the future to make sure that they continue to go smoothly. The 0.21 release, which is our next release coming up in July, the milestone plan is linked here, and the split dates are June the 7th. So we're working towards that date to split the code, to build the milestone build sort of the next day after we've done that split, and then milestone 2, June 29th, aiming for that July 14 release. So please do be focusing on the issues that are in that milestone plan. In particular, as we've been asking for the last couple of meetings, I'm continuing to ask that we focus on those 0.21 issues and trying to bring that list down, particularly ones that are user raised or related to crashes. So all committers, please be focusing on those, and contributors, as you're looking at picking up new issues, please focus on those as well. So I'll pause here in case there's anyone else who wants to interject anything. Shelley, do you want to give us the adopt update?
Just a very brief one. The respin for Mac and AIX builds happened this week. Thanks to Andrew for triggering those off. Those are related to the larger size of AIX binaries because they had debug info still in them, and the Mac that was missing debug info as part of that build. So those are now done and released. I will mention the smart parallelization work in test side because it does also directly affect OpenJ9. 2 of 5 pull requests have been delivered relating to this work. 2 are in draft, waiting on an internal issue to be resolved before delivering. They have to be done together because this also relates to how tests are going to be triggered in OpenJ9. And for anyone who doesn't know what the smart parallelization work is, I'll add the link in here shortly. It is to help us reduce the test execution time. So we're hoping, obviously dependent on a set of stable machines available to run across, we're hoping we can reduce, for example, PR testing by at least a third, or by at least cut it down to 33% of the time that it takes now. So that's the goal for this first cut. Again, I think we will be delivering this first to an internal server, watching it cautiously, and then moving it out to OpenJ9 and adopt OpenJDK testing. So I'll keep people posted on how this rolls out. And I don't have any other things here. Those notes are from last week. But again, for this week's activities at the project, we've been going through the retrospective issue that's linked there and creating new issues in the different repos that require or where we want to make improvements. That's all I had.
Thanks, Shelley. Adam or Joe, do you have an update on the infrastructure?
So
Go ahead. Go ahead, Adam. You do it.
okay. So we've been updating Visual Studio 2017 for the Windows machines, and that's proven to cause some disk usage issues because we're running low on disk, so we're trying to clean up and remove some old stuff we don't need anymore. For AX, rolling out CMake update. The package install version is broken. For PPCLE, we switched to Cent 7 compile machines. Those seem to have been going good.
Are we using SDK 10 to build 11? Better be careful about what SDKs we remove.
I think we're doing 11 for 11 everywhere. We can double check that. Same with 8. Maybe not. That's not maybe not true. We'll double check. And our Artifactory disk usage came down significantly since we reduced those numbers, and we're crept back up a little bit, but still in much better shape. We've been trying to turn on the Artifactory at UNB. We realized that some of the X machines network cards were limited in a setting, so they were transferring a lot slower than they should have been. That seems to have resolved the issues, but I'm still confirming that that's fixed the issue. That's all I have.
Looks like we are using 11 to build 11, but we're using 7 to build 8.
For PPCLE or?
For Windows.
Okay. I assume you have no Well, I guess whether we need 7 or 8, we need one of them. It wouldn't really matter for space.
Neither are on your list. I was concerned about 10, but I think we're okay because it looks like we're using 11 to build 11.
Okay.
Right, then we will move past the website design review, having started with the lightning talk, and I'll jump to the any other business. Devin, CMake is here again, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to...
Yeah, so you may have seen that in the Slack update that I'm looking for some feedback from people building with CMake on OS X to try and catch out, shake out any bugs that might be there. And the other thing I was looking for feedback on is our kind of a migration plan and what the conditions are for actually flipping the switch and enabling CMake by default on OS X. The current plan is in 9.1.9.5, but it basically boils down to get the nightly builds up, make sure those are stable and seem to be working, and then resolving any currently known issues there. And that list will grow as, well, hopefully won't grow as anyone reports any bugs with building with CMake. So just looking to see kind of what people feel about that migration path.
Devin, do you have a target date that you're working towards?
I do not at the moment, no.
All right, it would probably be good to pick that date that we'd be working towards, and some of that will depend on resolving the known issues, but
yeah,
having that target date would help incentivize people to provide feedback before then as well.
Yeah, okay.
So on the OpenJ9 nightly builds, we do a Linux CMake build, but we don't actually run any tests. Seems the first step would be to add a second build for CMake and run all the tests.
Yeah.
I noticed we don't run it inside either, so I'm going to add it to the list because we run all the tests inside as well.
Okay.
It should go tonight.
Any other comments or? So the issue here is linked from the agenda. It's been shared in Slack. So please, if you do have feedback, add it into this issue, and we'll continue to push this forward. The other issue here is the interim release proposal. Mark, you want to talk to that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dan. The proposal's been there in the issue for about a week now. There have been a variety of people from our community posting this, from our developer community, I should say, posting questions, comments. I would say the bulk of the discussion has been around sort of I would call it the mechanics of how we would do these releases. Although there has been some good things pointed out in terms of making sure we're capturing costs appropriately for all the people who are involved in doing releases. There was a suggestion that we don't have to do monthly. We could do every 6 weeks, which it has some pluses and some minuses associated with it. I guess there was a sort of stated preference on a couple of people's points of view that continuous builds or continuous releases would be a more attractive development model to be following than interim, but maybe interims are more practical for us at this point, given the resource constraints of the team, both in terms of people and in terms of machines and so on. So just while the meeting was kicking off, I put up a comment there just to clarify some of the points that I was making, and also to respond to some of the comments that had been made in the last couple of days that I hadn't seen. I think from my point of view right now, and I guess I want to confirm that with people on the call right now, I haven't heard any strong objections to this proposal. And sort of I would characterize it as kind of a weak support for doing it. Along with concerns that we don't do something that's going to be a lot more costly for us as a project. There have been a flurry of kind of recent comments, which I guess maybe was spurred by the community meeting coming up, by this community meeting happening. But given that there's been a bunch of comments very recently, I didn't want to just pull the trigger on a decision. So I've extended the discussion point till the end of the week for anybody who wants to add comments who hasn't thought to do so yet. And I guess I'll open it up for if anybody wants to comment specifically, on the call right now about this. Okay, that sounds like not much discussion. I think it's unfortunate that none of our users decided to join us. So I know we tweeted about this issue, and we asked people to write feedback, and I reached out to a couple of people individually to ask them to provide their input there. But unfortunately, I think everybody who's commented in the issue has been from the developer community. So we don't really have a good view on the user, or whether this is really something that our users would feel is valuable. I guess you could say lack of input is is a kind of feedback. But I still think this would be a good thing for our users. And so the lack of strong objection, well, lack of any objection really, is I still view that as kind of a weak support for doing this. So anyway, if you feel differently, make sure you express it in the issue, and we'll make a decision on this at the end of the week.
Mark, I think it's good that you're being proactive on this, because if it's better to do it now and have a process in place than for someone to come along later and we have to scramble to figure out a way of getting them something. So even if there aren't any consumers right now that are expressing support for this, they may rely on this in the future. And it'd be good that we have this process in place.
Right. Thanks, Joe. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure one or two people have asked for new updated releases in the past when there have been bugs. They said, can you please do a new release and fix this bug?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Ultimately, we didn't have fixes, or we found a workaround for them. But we might be able to track down those issues where people made those comments.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good idea. Thanks, Peter.
I would look for things that are currently tagged as backport candidates, because they would be the ones that would have had those discussions.
Label comes and goes. Once we do a release, the old backport candidates are obsolete, so I'm not sure we have those labels set on those issues anymore.
I'm not sure we've been as proactive on removing it as we said we would be. So yeah. Certainly be where I would start, because you're correct that there have been a couple of users who have requested backports.
Yeah, I may have
new releases.
I may have done some updates to remove the label.
Okay. Well, if anyone comes across links like that, I'll take a quick search through as well. But if anyone comes across an issue where they've seen that kind of a request, I'd appreciate it if you'd post a link into this particular proposal issue, just as kind of additional motivation to support doing it. Assuming you want to increase the support to do it. All right, I think that's it for me. Thanks. So
that is the end of our agenda then. And we're we're slightly over our usual target of aiming for about half an hour. So if anyone has any other business they'd like to raise now, I'll pause for a minute to give you an opportunity. All right, then thank you everyone, and we'll host the next one of these on May the 6th.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.